Welcome to another episode of the Loadout Music Podcast, featuring in-depth interviews with a wide range of music personalities, from rock and roll Hall of Famers to Grammy winners and today's rising stars. Recorded from the old Rock House in St. Louis, Missouri, here's your host, Aaron Perlut.
Welcome back to another episode of the Loadout Music Podcast. You know, when I started the Loadout a few years ago, one of the first requests I sent for guests was to a band called The War and Treaty. They are a husband and wife duo that plays an Americana blend of country, soul, blues, gospel, and rock. And after 4 years of pestering them and with a terrific major label debut record out, today we can finally welcome the only couple to share the connection between the film Sister Act 2 and Saddam Hussein's piano. That's Michael and Tanya Trotter of the War and Treaty. Guys, I'm so thankful to have you on the show today. It's a real treat for me.
Thank you so much. And thank you for the intro. That's probably the best introduction we've ever. I love it.
So I know that you guys have had this kind of long and winding path through your personal lives, coming together, discovering music. I have found it pretty fascinating in that, Michael, my understanding is that you and your mother hopped on a bus bound for DC, and Tanya, you had spent a good part of your life living in Maryland, which kind of geographically brought you two together. But that, Michael, you really kind of discovered music and playing piano while you were serving overseas in the military. You were serving in Iraq in was it 2004? So that time frame, early 2000s.
Yeah, 2004, all the way through 2007, and what a discovery! What a discovery! The palace we're staying at belonged to Saddam Hussein and his sons, and Saddam had pianos all over Iraq, and in this particular one, he had an upright black piano, and I go down there and I one finger it. I couldn't play. And I taught myself how to play right there in Iraq on Saddam Hussein's piano.
Whereas the time you had been playing music, I mean, you had a solo career. I mentioned at the outset that you were in Sister Act 2, but I mean, you were an actress, you've done film, you've done theater, stage. You have had records out as a solo artist. So you had been playing since the early 90s, correct?
Oh yeah, I've been doing music professionally since I was 16. I signed my first deal when I was 17, right out of high school, and went to college and was recording at the same time during my freshman year in college. So music has been my whole life. It's what I've always wanted to do, and it's what I fell in love with at 8 years old.
And Michael, had you dabbled in music at all, at least vocally, before you discovered the piano, maybe in church or something like that?
Oh, definitely. I was in choir all my life. I got my first singing gig when I was 3 years old at the Holy Trinity Baptist Church in Cleveland, Ohio. I won the 1996 DC Future Fest singing competition, but growing up in the hood and being a kid from Cleveland, Ohio, and in the 90s, rap was huge. I wanted to be a rapper. I wanted to be like the next Biggie or Tupac. So, that was my goal. And that didn't work out too good.
So my understanding is that where Tanya was performing in a park or something to that degree, and you saw her perform, and is that where? But I think you had actually seen her in Sister Act 2, had you not? How did you two connect finally?
You almost got it right. So yeah, I did see her in Sister Act 2, but Tanya saw me performing in a park.
Okay.
In Laurel, Maryland, at a park called Laurel Lakes, Maryland. Okay. I was there because of her. She was putting on a back to school backpack drive, and I was one of the no-name local artists they booked.
Yeah.
And I saw Tanya and was like, oh, Ave Maria. I was like, oh my God, I'm in love.
You just knew it.
I just knew it, brother, of course.
But is it true that she tried to get you her phone number and you threw it out at first? I mean,
Oh, Aaron, she just had to bring that up, didn't you?
Yeah, that's true.
I do my research, man. I'm not coming into this cold.
Oh, you should have came in this freezing. Yeah, I threw a number away. I just thought, yeah, she don't want nothing to do with me for real. And I had some low self-esteem issues going on after the war and stuff. But Tanya's father is a police detective, and Tanya picked up some detective skills from him and found my number anyhow and called me, and I'm so glad she did.
Yeah.
So, I mean, did it start off? How did it start off? Was it a friendship? How did the music piece come into it ultimately? How did that work?
Oh, we were friends first, and we got married, and actually didn't start singing together until we were married for about 3 years. So we didn't get married to sing together, which is the typical story. We actually fell in love and had a baby, and went through the ups and downs of the first 3 years of marriage. And
that was a fun
part.
The baby part.
Yeah, the baby part was fun.
Yeah.
And then 3 years into the marriage, a friend of ours actually heard us. My brother and I were working on a project together, and Michael was writing the songs for it. And a friend of ours heard us.
You got your chronological
okay.
order.
You want to do the order?
Yeah. First off,
you do it right.
I'm the dates guy.
Yeah,
so,
he is the dates guy.
First off, we weren't friends. Tanya enlisted me to, when she first met me, singing at that place. She wanted to know if I wrote the songs.
Yeah.
I told her yes. And she told me then that her brother and her were working on a duo project, and that they wanted me to write the songs.
Yeah.
And from that point forward, he couldn't make rehearsals. So I wrote the songs, and then I would have to fill in for him to show her Tanya how the songs would go. And from there, just spending all that time together, and we were singing together almost every day. We were writing, we were laughing and eating and joking, and naturally just doing the lover's game until the game was over. We fell in love, and like Tanya said, we ended up getting together and having the baby boy and getting married and all that kind of stuff. And it wasn't until 2014 where she was already still doing her solo thing, and I was trying to do my own thing musically as well, and neither one of our own things were quite panning out the way we would have wanted them to. And we were also trying to support each other's dreams, but then something took priority over the dream, and that was treatment. Tanya helped me identify that I had severe PTSD, severe depression, and severe anxiety. And Tanya kind of like shut her life down and made me her life's priority, and got me in treatment. And, so that was our first song, the song of treatment, kind of like getting me up to par and getting me just used to talking about what I had gone through and what I had seen and that kind of thing. And then from there, the rest was history.
And Tanya, I know that not only do you have your own child at the time, child together, but you also had a child. And Michael, you also had a child, if I'm correct. So you had a lot more going on than simply just taking care of the person you love, but you also had to kind of keep things together in terms of your family unit. That must have been really challenging.
It was very challenging, but I have a great support system. And my son at the time was a teenager, so he really was in his own world, but he still and didn't need me the same way you would if you had like a toddler or a younger child. So it was easy to kind of infuse and balance the families together, and our girls, Michael's daughters, were 6 and 8 years old at the time. So it was a challenging time for not just me on my side, but for Michael on his side as well, because he was dealing with the traumatic experience that he had gone through, and he hadn't had that opportunity to do that, but he loved his daughters and he loved his family, and I knew that much about him. And we look back now on it, it wasn't as bad as we may have thought it was. We had a lot of fun times, and the funny thing is our children, they don't understand that we even gone through what we went through. That happened. All they remember is that Michael and I tried to show them a different side of what we were going through. We never put that in front of them.
Ultimately, you guys got to the point where you were able to put out your first record, and that was actually as Trotter and Blunt, correct?
Yes, yeah, it was a gospel / love album, R&B, and we had a lot of fun doing that album in Virginia at Q Studios.
Mm-hmm.
Where in Virginia is Q Studios?
It's in McLean.
Okay, well, as a Springfield native, I know the tough streets of McLean. Yeah, you grew up tough in McLean. It's hard.
That's right, baby.
Yeah. So you put that out, and that was more of an EP, as I recall. It maybe had 5-6 songs on it.
Yeah, something like that. Yeah.
And then later that year, you put out your first single as the War and Treaty, correct?
That's right. That's right.
Now,
I had to keep that one.
Is it true though that the War and Treaty, did that name come from kind of an argument the two of you were having, and it was like, we're having this war, but here's the treaty, here's where we're going to come together? And
it came about from arguing about changing the name
again.
We went through 9 band names, and I just did not feel settled, and we started arguing about changing the name again. And Tanya yelled out, "You know what, Michael, this is not the war, and we need to come to some sort of treaty." I said, "Well, we just did, because you just named it. We are now the War and Treaty."
That's right.
Thank God she liked it, and it explains the natural tug and pull of life. We are always at war with something, but as long as we can come to some sort of treaty, at the end of the day, we win.
Yeah, I mean, that's kind of you talked about the tug and pull of, that's kind of that's the spectrum of human relationships for the most part. It's kind of why nothing gets done in politics anymore, because there's zero compromise. But it's kind of what makes us human. And regardless, though, since then, it seems like you guys have just been on this gradual trajectory, just kind of hockey sticking up, where it seems like, album after album. And I know we're going to eventually talk about the new record, which I believe is your 5th record, which is terrific, by the way. But it just seems like, as you guys have progressed, each step along the way, you've worked with bigger producers, gotten more notoriety, kind of, you said that first record was more of a gospel album, but you guys have just expanded the nature of your music in terms of adding different pieces to it. And it's been interesting to see that progression. What has that been like? Has there been this kind of master plan involved, or has it just been kind of this gradual evolution of the two of you as a husband and wife, as partners in this band and in a business, I imagine, and as artists together?
Yeah, the word evolution is definitely it. And not just, as you said, you really said it all, because as husband and wife, we've grown,
Oh, yeah.
As musicians, we've grown. As vocalists, we've grown. As songwriters, we've grown. Even as parents, we've grown. Every part of us has changed. And, the good thing about it, and I believe that's what makes our marriage great, is that we're changing at the same time. One of us isn't leaving the other one behind. And we're open to, we're vulnerable with each other, which makes it easier for us to be vulnerable with our audience. So not only are we changing, but our audience is also changing, because they're seeing the growth in us as well. And people are coming to the shows just as vulnerable as we are, from the crowd. So the albums reflect the personal development that's taking place inside of us.
Yeah.
Do you I've found dozens of them, but do you like the comparisons that a lot of people have made throughout the years to Ike and Tina?
I love that comparison because I know what they're comparing it to. Obviously it's not the negative aura that surrounds that comparison, but when you look at what they were able to do musically, Ike Turner is still a musical genius, and Tina Turner is still an undeniable force to be reckoned with, and to be mentioned in that sense along those lanes, we don't feel worthy still, and just so grateful.
Yeah, I think music fans, musicians understand just how brilliant Ike Turner was as a musician. I mean, he's oftentimes credited with having produced, written, and played most of the instrumentation on the first rock album ever, Rock at 88.
Yeah.
And he and Tina's catalog is so remarkably deep. I mean, you can listen to it for not just hours, but days upon days of phenomenal music. And so I've always found it a really wonderful comparison, because I've been a lifelong fan of their music and tried to kind of, as you noted, Michael, set aside the challenges that Ike had personally, which were pretty horrendous, and kind of the magic and the brilliance of their partnership as musicians. And even, Tina's not really singing today because of her health, but she obviously persevered throughout her entire life and up until pretty recently, and is one of the greatest vocalists ever. But so I've always found it to be a wonderful comparison, but some people are a little uncomfortable with it.
Yeah, I think because of the obvious, I mean, as powerful as they were as a musical duo, they were a shit show as lovers. And that is something also that Tanya and I have learned from, how to kill the egos and how to keep your demons at bay, and really look at this person standing opposite of you and not see them as opposite of you, but see them as yourself. And when I look in my wife's eyes, I see a reflection of me. And I just pray to God that when she looks in mine, she sees the same reflection of her heart.
Is it whenever I've seen you play music, whenever I've seen video of you on Instagram, I feel it's easy to get a sense of your love beyond just the music, but for your love for one another. Is it difficult living out your romance in public sometimes? I mean, I know obviously there's always, with my wife, there's what people see out front, and then there's what happens behind closed doors. But you are living your marriage in public largely. Is that a difficult thing to do?
It's not. I mean, one of the things I love about Michael, and when I look into his eyes, that I see is vulnerability. And that's one of the things that he helped bring out of me, because, I wasn't as vulnerable before I met him, with my own challenges in my own life, but he helped soften those places in me. And I think when you are softened and when you're open to the love that someone is trying to give you, you want it to be displayed wherever you are. PDA, a lot of people turn away from it. They don't like it, and usually stems from them not having it at some point in their lives as a kid or whatever the case may be. But I think that what we do at home is exactly what we do on stage. Our kids, they'll tell you, they're always telling us to get a room, don't do it in front of us, ill, so it's not anything foreign to them when they see us share our love on stage. And we want our fans to be comfortable with that too. If they come to a show with their loved one, that they should be feeling okay, that it's okay to kiss your loved one and hug them and, let them know that you love them, because that's the most important feeling right there. All
right. Well, I know we have limited time today, so we've got to get to the new record. And the new record was produced by Dave Cobb. It's 10 tracks. I've listened to it. You talked about, Tanya, you mentioned vulnerability there, and this, it's kind of right there in the title of the album called Lover's Game. I mean, it seems like every record you guys do has a lot about your relationship, about your love for one another. Tell us about the new record, because I know I've enjoyed it, but I'm sure who cares what I think. Let's hear how you depict the record.
That's Michael.
I'm enjoying it so far. Performing it live and seeing people sing it back to us. I was honest. I don't think you can do a record and leave out when you're working with somebody as honest as Dave Cobb as well. Tanya and I, we really opened ourselves up in the writing process, and people say, oh, all this is singing about love. And you know what? Until we get that message across, we're going to keep singing about love, and loving each other, and loving your brothers and sisters, and loving life and loving yourself. And I am very, very excited for people to fall in love with the Lover's Game album. And I can't wait till you get a chance to see us again, Aaron. I think we've grown since you've seen us. It's been an intentional growth. And some areas we've grown in that we didn't even know we needed to grow. So
yeah, it's been a lot of fun, and it's been a journey performing this record. I must say that when we recorded it, even listening down to it, to perform it every night is a totally different experience. It really is. And to be so new to, even though we have a couple of records out, we're still very new to it, and the fans know the words to the songs already, and it's only been 6 weeks, that the record has been out. It blows my mind every night.
Is that people always ask that question, when do you know that you made it? And is it that point where you start to go play and people know the words? Is that, to me, I mean, you could say it's playing in a big arena or what have you, but having an audience where they actually know the words by heart that you've written, is that just one of those points where you're like, holy shit, this is pretty awesome? I mean, is that a moment for you?
It's been so many different moments. Like when we played festivals before, and people would scream and not know us at all, because they felt something on stage, to be able to affect people with your voice. That's one moment, and then when you write a record or you hear the record on the radio or on the internet, that's another moment. It's so many different moments. So I don't think for me, there's one moment that I could say that you made it.
Yeah.
I know you've got to run. Michael, Tanya, I appreciate you all so much for being here, and wish you only the best with the new record. I know you're on tour right now, and hopefully, in maybe a year or two, we can have you back on. And thank you so much for being on the Loadout. It's been a real pleasure for me, and real honor. And I know the audience is going to love it.
Thanks, brother. I appreciate you, man. Thank you, Aaron.
All right. Take care.
You too, bro.